My name is Prof Pholeros. I'm an architect and I'm a Director of Health Habitat. And Health Habitat started almost 30 years ago, actually, next year. And its charter is to improve the health of people through improving their living environments. The other two directors are medically linked, a medical doctor and an environmental health guy, and I'm the odd one out, being the architect. They set the goals, and my job is to achieve improvements in the living environment to improve health.
Okay. You have a project in Bangladesh, in Dinajpur, I've even heard.
That's
Tell
right.
me about it.
Yeah, I was doing a talk in Canberra a couple of years ago, and in the audience was the High Commissioner of Bangladesh, who sat in, and he noticed me talking about work in Nepal and said, is it possible that Bangladesh could get similar work? And that was really the introduction to working in Bangladesh. Through the Bangladeshi Architects in Australia, there were very supportive people who said, we will arrange to get you to Bangladesh and see if we can find a project together that is within the work of Health Habitat and also obviously meets the needs of people in Bangladesh. So during the first visit, we found a community in the north of Bangladesh, up in the Dinajpur area. Our aim always is to find strong local partners. We found a group up in the north of Bangladesh who had worked with poor people, had a building skills, they understood the sort of work that Health Habitat does, so we talked to them. We then found a community and found a number of families who would happily participate in what we call a trial project. We always start with a trial. We do a small amount of work and we involve all the partners we can from the country we're working in to see how everyone performs, basically. We test them. So we started a project, and the project really was to provide a place to wash, provide toilet facilities. Mainly though, the issue was to improve the quality of wastewater entering the environment so that people don't drink polluted water. And it's a very, very large problem in Bangladesh that health statistics show that many people are constantly ill through drinking polluted water. And the water is polluted by human waste. So our overall task was to achieve improved health through improving the quality of wastewater that was treated.
Okay. Now you said it was on the invitation of the High Commissioner, a personal invitation no less, but then you've got a lot of support from your fellow compatriot architects, the Bangladeshi architects here. Talk about that a little.
Sure. Look, the High Commissioner and any people in high power can have the idea, but the actual work is implemented by people who hold a shovel and a spade. And it's people in the ground that actually do the work, and that's not diminishing the role of the High Commissioner. It's simply saying that we need a lot of people to run projects. In Bangladesh, we also had, I think, some legendary architects. Mubashir Hussain, who was a president of the institute in Bangladesh, he also saw very clearly the need for this type of project. And I've got to remind you, for architects, this is not looking very sexy. It's not a grand building, it's not a parliament building, it's not a hospital, it's not even a beautiful house. It's a place to wash and for people to use as a toilet. But the implications of the work, meaning that kids are healthier, then adults are healthier, people like Mubashir Hussain and then the Bangladeshi architects in Bangladesh as well as in Australia, they understand the significance of that, and I think that's really important. So they got behind the project as well as the people on the ground.
Great. Now, we're here talking about social business as well, Dr. Yunus and his ideas on that. Are you applying some of that approach in this work?
It's a good question, because the first project or the start of any project we do, international or in Australia, we contribute all the money. We don't ask the families to participate, we don't ask them to contribute, we don't ask them to put in any resource. We do that because if it's a total failure, if what we design, if what we develop doesn't work, we'll mitigate the damage and we'll walk away very quietly, but we won't expect poor people to pay money for things that simply don't work. This is what we did in Nepal, it's what we do in South Africa and in Africa generally. But from here on, the game changes. Once we can show that in fact we have a product that works, then we ask each family to put in a cash contribution. Start again. So from now the game changes. If we proceed in Bangladesh, we'll ask each family, they'll sign a contract, they'll have to put in a cash contribution, they'll have to put an in-kind contribution to do some of the labour, their family will have to participate in the construction work, and this becomes quite a significant component of the total cost. That way, one, we have buy-in of people, but also we believe that that begins the social business model. It's hard though to replicate a social business model on things that don't necessarily return an income. There's a distinction. So we cross-subsidise, as Dr. Yunus has said, is a very valid way. So we cross-subsidise projects in wealthy countries like Australia that can earn money. We can cross-subsidise to some extent projects in poorer countries where there simply isn't the reserves of money to do it, and Bangladesh would be one of those.
So in effect you're saying you're using some of your income and resources from here to support the development of that, and that's Health Habitat is doing that.
Yes. But the long-term aim, as in Nepal, is that ultimately we want the program to be run in Bangladesh by Bangladeshis, not by Health Habitat. The sooner we can withdraw is our business model. The sooner we can get out, the better. In Nepal, after a year and a half, Nepalese were running all aspects of the program. And I've got to say, in Bangladesh, I think that will probably be even quicker. We have some exceptional young architects just graduated who are taking a really key and important role in the project in terms of design, in terms of construction, in terms of monitoring the results. We have very strong local partners who are learning new skills. They've just learnt, for example, how to test water. We set up a laboratory up in the north of Bangladesh using found material and a lot of things we brought from Australia, but they're now able to test water accurately in the north of Bangladesh, which hasn't existed up till now. So we're hoping that'll become another business tool in their bag. They can do construction work, they can make treated bamboo, they can make roof tiles, they can make earth bricks, but they can also offer a highly technical water testing service to international NGOs, to Bangladeshi NGOs, to Bangladeshi groups who need water tested, drinking water or wastewater.
Okay. Well, that sounds like amazing work over there. That's great. I'd like to ask you about, does Javanity's camera stuff? Or, he's not there?
It's not there.
Okay. Another theme that's come up here is architects as social change agents. Could you reflect on that? Do you see yourself as a social change agent as an architect? Obviously with your work, but...
I see myself as an architect. And one thing I've learnt working with a medical doctor, working with an environmental health guy, working with engineers, working with all sorts of specialists, I think it's really important that you retain what it is you know and don't pretend that you know about other things that you don't. I'm not a community development person, I'm not a financier, I'm not a microfinance person, I'm certainly not a doctor. I think the skill in this work is each player knowing what they can do and clearly what we can't do and when we need to call in others. So when I hear change agent, I mean, I would think that applies to everyone in the Bangladesh project. Everyone that I work with is a change agent. So no, I don't think I am. I think the key part is getting the best out of all those players. So we want village community people to understand every bit about the technology, the technicals, every bit as much as we would the scientist in Australia knowing about that. Why? Because they have self-interest. They're the change agents. Who does the change affect most? Not me. I fly back to Australia. Not the architects in Bangladesh, they go back to Dhaka. Who does it affect most? It affects the kid who every day goes and pumps water out of a well and drinks it. If they get sick, there's no change. If they stay well, they've become, and their family and all the workers there have become change agents.
What role then do architects have to play in this piece in the puzzle, if you will?
It's a really good question. I think architects have a great number of skills, some of which they don't even value when it comes to working outside the traditional role of working with rich people to design big flash buildings that you take photos of and win awards for. But there are lots of skills that architects have. They can draw, they can think, they can imagine, they can put on a piece of paper things that are not yet into being. They can do costings, they can think about how things should be built and all the impacts on that process. I mean, I think they also are used to working in teams. That's one of the things we're trained to do. We work with traditionally engineers, with a client. with all sorts of consultants, and I don't see why we can't push the boundaries a little further and just incorporate more people into that mix. And the key people have to be those who live in the places we work. And traditionally we've seen them as clients who pay us money, but often I think that's all they do. They pay us money and we give them a product. We have to readjust, as Dr. Yunus keeps telling us, we have to readjust, I think, our sight about that and say that not only are they clients who maybe don't pay us money, but they have to contribute a large amount to the actual solution and the ongoing solution of keeping it all working. Architects can muster all of that, and if we can do that, then I think we have something to offer. But I'd be cautious, because sometimes I don't think we do have much to offer, and we need to know to sit down and shut up and listen to others who have more to offer.
Very good. Point well taken. Do you want to move across, or are you saying no? Okay, so we're here in Australia. We're talking about a remote country that seems on the other side of the world, Bangladesh. Very few people have heard of, and they have heard of it. It's usually floods, poverty, or disasters. What can Australians learn from working with Bangladeshis? Let's put it like that.
I think Australians going to Bangladesh, if they haven't been before, will see a different place, a different culture, different physical environment, clearly a different way of doing day-to-day business of life. And I mean, I think that to go anywhere in the world, I think, is important. It shakes the principles and the foundations on which you think the world is based. I'm always interested, because I guess we work in so many countries, including remote parts of Australia, that the first thing you always see is difference. But very quickly, I think what you see is similarity. And I hope that Australians would start to see that it's the similarities to me which are more powerful between Bangladesh and Australia. And what I mean by that is I've never worked with a group of Bangladeshis, Australians, Africans, Nepalis who want their children to be sick. Never. They're different cultures, they're different religions, they have different incomes, they have different worldviews. But that's a universal that unites all those people. And the one thing I think that I've seen again, which links to Bangladesh, is that our perception often that people are the problem, whether they're Bangladeshis or Aboriginal Australians or poor South Africans, we see that it's the people, or we define people as the problem, whereas we would argue that people are always the solution. And in fact, the problem is almost always endemic poverty. That's a universal. It's not the fault of the people. People aren't stupid. People aren't lazy. They're simply poor. And the great impact of Dr. Yunus's work, I believe, has, in its most simple form, has said, why wouldn't you lend money to poor people? It's a real change of principle. And in lots of ways our work, I'm not comparing it to the work of Dr. Yunus, but in some ways it says the same, that poor people throughout the world have very similar problems. Most importantly, though, they can be solved mainly by the people who are actually living there with the problem. And they have the greatest reason to solve the problem. Not government, not people from another country, but the people who actually live there.
Okay, my last one, which I ask everybody, which is kind of like a call to action type thing. It's usually towards the end of our videos. It's going to be, how would you invite people to participate in this and support the work of Bangladeshi Architects Australia and in your work as well? What would you say to those people? What would your rallying cry be on this? If you're a XYZ, or if you believe in a whatever, like that's kind of the statements I'm looking for here.
It's a hard question.
No, I know. You think about it for a second or two if you need to.
Sure. I mean, I think anyone coming to this work, the first thing they ought to try and do is get to know what the work actually is. Have a really good in-depth knowledge of what the work is, not what it appears to be, not what it professes to be, not what they think it is, but what it actually is. And then see if they can play some role in that. And sometimes the best way to do that is to go to the country. Sometimes the best way is to link to a specific project. The less generality you have about this sort of these issues, I think the more you can see a direct role for yourself and a reason why you should get involved. When we take people to projects, the thing that hits me most is they start always with an image of the project, that we are riding in on horseback to save poor people from themselves. And quickly they realise that's simply not the case. It's the people on the ground that are doing most of the work. They have the ideas. We help, we can contribute a bit, but we're not the ones saving the world. We're not the ones changing. So it's a way too long an answer.
Do you have it in a nutshell for me?
Look, I think the main thing, we've got a principle in our work. We never, and I'll get this even finer, we never start a project anywhere without being able to make change within the first 24 hours of arriving at a project. We would never go to Bangladesh or to Nepal or to an Aboriginal community in Australia without taking the resources to make some change within 24 hours of arriving in a community. And I'd put that as the test on anyone. If you're thinking of solving the world's problems, imagine you go to the first place. What would you do within 24 hours to improve the lives of some or one person that you find in that community? If you think there's a need for change, if you think there's a need for help, think of what you would do to help the life of one person within 24 hours of anywhere you go. That'll change the way you view the world and I think the problems you face.
Okay, great. Do you have anything else to add?
Wow, that's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't need to say what's coming next. What's next?
Yeah, tell us what's next with your involvement with BAA and your project in your projects in Bangladesh, where you'd like it to go.
Sure. Yeah, we've had a year. We built only two small buildings. We've had a year to evaluate them. We've just finished that process with the people who used them and the community who built them. Our next step is to work out now how we redesign it from the ground up, which we've just done. We change almost everything because we can do it all much better than we thought we could a year ago. That's important. We all make mistakes. We can all get it better, which we have. Local people on the ground gave 90% of the instruction as to how it could be changed for the better, which is great. That's been done. The next step now is to start scaling it up, is to start building more and more and more. We probably need 10 million toilets in Bangladesh, 10 million wash areas, so we've only got 9,999,999 to go. So that's the task.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, great. All right, cheers.
That's some really great insights for everything.